Hello and welcome to another riveting episode of Awaking Happiness. And hello, Desi, joining me here today this morning. How you doing?
Hello, Chris, and welcome everybody. Welcome back. We've been away.
Yeah, I've been away for a couple of weeks, and so we have done some recording, but on our other channel, which is the Haven Garden, which if you're into gardening, you might want to go and check it out. But I'm sure Desi will put a link into that in the description below, will you not, Desi?
I will. And while
While
we are
you're there,
doing this,
while you're there checking out all that stuff, you might as well subscribe, like this video, and get involved in awakening your happiness. So anyway, so this morning, an interesting topic because yesterday on my Facebook feed. I don't get a lot of things come on my Facebook feed anymore because my stuff on social media is kind of retraced into just sharing some of the things we're up to rather than posting all sorts of stuff because I don't feel that's my future, as it were. And I was reading about the Dalai Lama. Now, what intrigued me about the Dalai Lama was I went to see the Dalai Lama about 3 or 4 years ago in London. Not a one to one, not a one to one. Actually, about 3,000 people in the audience, so didn't get a personal hearing.
blessing.
But the reports are that he's been doing some strange things with young children, really, and of course with the paedophilia, like uh, such a high profile with Epstein and all this other stuff going on. People are really getting excited
Agitated.
and
Mm.
agitated about this potential, from the Dalai Lama, who is almost seen as a sort of God on earth type character in many people's eyes, and it rides off the back of all this stuff going on with Catholics and the Pope and stuff, and like you end up thinking, well, if you're into religion or what would have been in the past setting the moral grounding for the human race, it's all been perverted and it's all basically just if you're
Downgraded.
if you're
Yeah.
in religion, there must be something wrong with you, kind of thing. Um, and of course, that is a view. When you hear about the the things that some of the people in these religious groups do, you think to yourself, what? How on earth could somebody behave in this way when they have the confidence of the people and they're kind of in a very privileged position and very vulnerable, and yet they're being taken advantage, with this, with all this stuff. And yeah, you can't argue with it. It's not right. Yeah, it's not right. And I don't know whether the Dalai Lama, whether this was a colloquial expression in basically Tibet, or whether it's some kind of Chinese initiative to because they've always wanted Tibet to basically try and overthrow the strength of this religion here in order for them to bring down the Dalai Lama and the whole thing he stands for, such that they could just cruise in there and mop up. Who knows? Who knows the rationale behind it? But what it did do was it basically prompted me to consider once more how awakening happiness and inner peace can be disturbed by simply news media who people suddenly take interest in what they're saying when most of the time we know it's all nonsense, and yet now suddenly people who typically would go, this is a whole load of nonsense, I don't read the newspapers, I don't listen to the news, suddenly are listening to it. So have the media changed their position and now reporting the truth, or are they still just rolling out divisive stories in order to disturb and agitate a population that exists, that's out there, with yet another diversion and yet another reason for us to fight each other? Who knows? But what I was doing yesterday, we were down on the allotment, and I was considering this morning, looking at some of the pictures I took, about, and as we walked away, we were talking to somebody else who was basically doing a bit of work for somebody on there, and how he's got some kind of, I don't know what he was talking about, but anyway,
Grand design.
some kind of support for some kind of wonderful grapevine that's going to look amazing, and you know, great, and an opposite, there's somebody, and an opposite, somebody's done some amazing work on a kind of like from zero to hero in a month, setting up an allotment to be you know, amazing, so they can just get going with growing things, and so, you know, and spend a lot of money, get it sorted quickly, and then you can just start working your allotment. You know, there's value in that idea as well. And then we look at what we've been doing for like best part 2.5 years, and it just dawned on me that our second half has been a year in our possession, and how we're doing that, and it's like you can always look around. And we've talked about comparison, and there's no joy in comparison. You can look around, you can be distracted, and you can start to look at your, and I know you do this in many aspects of what you're up to. You look around and, you know, like what other people are doing, or why are people liking them and not me, you know, and all this stuff, right? You can look around, and you can always find something to bring you down, or to affect your inner peace. This is what I would call your inner peace, where now you're starting to consider things which you have no control whatsoever over, and like this thing with the Dalai Lama, coming back to that, and this is just, it's just amplified by doing things on the allotment. That's what I'm saying. It's like you can look around and you can start comparing what you're doing with what they're doing. You can start saying, oh, it'd be good if we could do this and we could do that, and all your plans get mashed up, just get all mashed up, because you haven't even done what you were going to do, and now comes another idea and another idea and another idea, and you haven't even finished the ideas you had in the first place. This is what I call disturbing in the peace. And you look at the Dalai Lama situation, and it's just another contentious issue that's been raised in order to get people to fight each other or come up. And, you know, like, I'm not pro, right, pedophilia, right? I think it's a disgrace, right? I think children should be allowed to grow up, and then when they're of an age where they feel they could, then obviously things happen. And it's not like I'm against it, but there's this whole, and this is really important, there's this whole tribe and movement of people who say, like, if you ignore this, it's no better than joining the side that's doing the crime. So if you don't stand up and shout down paedophilia, then you're a supporter of paedophilia, right? That's reminds me of the hanging squads in the old Western movies, when they took law into their own hands, went and strapped someone up and hung them because the mob felt like they were doing something wrong, right? Well, you know, it's one way of doing it. It might not be the most judicial way of doing things, but, you know, I suspect many fell to that, you know, the hanging squad group of people. And now we're in the same situation where if you're not with us, you're against us. Trump did it. If you're not with me, you're against me. You know, like, it's becoming incredibly divisive, this rhetoric. And here we are. I'm not going to stand up, and I'm not going to slag the Dalai Lama off. I don't feel actually I can add anything to this story, and I don't feel like I don't know whether it's true or not either. So I'm not going to listen to the newspapers who like to just stick more fuel on the fire. And, you know, I'm not going to fight. Now, there are other people out there that are going to fight this battle, and they are passionate about it, and they're going to stand up, and they're going to say, if you're not with us, you're against us. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fight this, whatever it is, whatever it is that they're very passionate about. That might be their thing, and what they are going to excel at is because they're passionate about it. and we need passionate people that provide an angle on something. I've got a passion about gardening, so I'm going to stand up now, aren't I? And I'm going to say, right, if you're not growing your own food, you're against me, and you're pro modified foods, and you're pro Bill Gates, and you're pro the farmer industry, you know, like, and you're pro this. And if you're not with me, you're against me. So if you're not growing food, you're my enemy. Like, no, no, I just don't like growing food. I prefer to just go down.
It seems like this rhetoric only works for really painful points for people. It doesn't work for things that are nice and peaceful, and so we don't create this type of division when it comes to when it starts from something positive. Like I'm gonna be enjoying my life from now on. Oh, if you're not enjoying your life, then you're against me. It always starts with a fear point, with a point of agitation, because then that triggers people into a reaction, and as you say, it destroys the inner peace.
Yeah,
Because now all of a sudden you have this anxiety, and you start to be worried about things, and then you think you can't do anything about it, so you now start to feel helpless, and it just can cascade into a whole lot of mental health issues from there on.
you know, like somebody posted on that thing. I'm a bit out of the news, Otis. I was Otis that was doing a bit out of the loop. Really, I'm not listening to any news. Not doing what the hell's going on. You know, like he wasn't the first person to say stuff like that.
I didn't know
Yeah,
anything about that either. So what's going on with
because
the Dalai Lama?
in which case there's no point is there in there's no point in like going down that road, because your life's not going to change if you know or you don't know. The only thing that's going to change is your mind's changed. It's now worked up
Confused,
or
like
confused,
distracted.
and the only way you're going to solve that is either to just basically kick it out, because you can do that if you train yourself. You can basically change your way of thinking, or you go and find out about it. Right, you waste a load of hours. You waste a load of hours of other people's time answering your questions that they already know the answers to, and you end up spending like what can be quite a large amount of time, and at the end of it, you're no further forward, and you just wasted a load of time and energy not doing what you love doing.
Hmm.
And it's like, what was the point? Uh,
Another thing is, you said that there people were protesting when you went to see the Dalai Lama. Um, that reminded me of this mob mentality, and that's why we meant with the title of this video is as it is. But if every single one of these people were by themselves, faced one to one with the Dalai Lama, would they be shouting in his face the wrong and bad words that they were shouting when they were together? It's like it enhances each other. We enhance each other's fear, and it becomes this anger or emotion amplified by the energy, the emotional
well,
energy of every single one of us, and then it becomes this big thing out of
well,
nothing.
absolutely, and that's like in a contentious setting, but you can like chanting. I'm not a big chanting fan myself, but when people chant together, they they increase the vibration, don't they? As a result of the fact that they're all doing it together, like the people standing out, like protesting, and if you
Hmm.
there is no question about it. Like the more people that get together, the higher the vibration and the more energy that's picked up and scooped up from around to basically amplify everything. So yeah, I mean it yeah, if you want an example of how people working together and thinking about things together can amplify things, and religion is basically based on this prayer and all that kind of stuff for centuries upon centuries,
Hmm.
has basically been saying this is a way we can create greater change in the world. And of course, yes, it is, but it seems to be that this amplification is mainly used in a negative context. It's like
Yeah.
to drag something down or cause disruption or unrest somewhere, whereas actually it could be used beneficially in a more positive way. And you know, the Dalai Lama's been involved in stuff like that himself, obviously, because it's from Buddhist origins, all this stuff. So yeah, it's
Is it that we have, for so long, we have been exposed to this type of fear triggering news that we are somehow addicted to another one of these scary, anger generating news that we just jump at the very first mention of the next thing? That we are so we have been primed and primed and primed, and the only way out of this reaction towards these triggering events that somebody creates for us to stir and agitate, the only way out would be to find it inside of us, this part that is scared and fearful,
yeah. I mean,
and work
I
with
think
that.
it's it's a style of it or an approach to things, isn't it? Like I could get in an argument with people very, very easily by because I like to see both sides of things. I like to see all sides of things. But
Because I
basically,
like to argue.
well, no, but I think if somebody thinks they are so right, that they need to that there is also a potential for them to basically accept that there are other views,
Mhm.
and then for them to reflect on that and maybe come to an acceptance that actually people are people, they're human beings, and they're spiritual entities, and that we shouldn't be fighting with each other. We should be trying to understand each other because everybody's had a different upbringing, everybody's had a different set of education, everybody's
Mhm.
been exposed to different influences, and consequently, it's like no two people are the same because they've had entirely different lives. They might look the same, they might appear the same, they might have the same characteristics, but ultimately they're not the same. And yet we're way more interested in fighting and arguing our point than we are trying to understand why somebody's got the view they have. And that's really different. It's like, why do you think like that? And there's a million reasons, but basically there's always a reason why people think differently to you. It's like
Mhm.
something different happened in their life, didn't it? Therefore, there's a different viewpoint. It's not rocket science, but like instead of doing that, we'd rather fight people and dismiss them and just call them idiots or something, just because they've got a different viewpoint. Well, clearly they're not idiots. Yeah, they're just coming from a different angle. Maybe they've got a different agenda. Maybe the opposite to what you think benefits them in some way. You know, there's always a
Mhm.
reason. It doesn't mean that they hate you. It just means that there's something else going on. Like an opposite view might be that they have loads of money. The problem is they idolize money. It's got nothing to do with hating you. It's like, well, if you get your way, I won't get my next meal. And I want my
Mhm.
next meal. So you're wrong, and I'm going to bash you over the head and tell you that you're wrong, and like because I need my meal, you know, like and then money that is, and essentially they'll argue their point, even though they know they might even know they're wrong, but they're going to argue their point because being wrong and not having a meal is like a double whammy.
It's the worst of the two
Yeah,
for
so
them.
so
Yeah.
there and there's always a reason, and rather than trying to understand, I'll give you a meal, like don't worry about being fed, I'll give you a meal, but like you're not being you're not being responsible here because you're basically just taking a side, and that's the end of it. Instead of maybe like sliding towards that option, but with an open mind to basically seeing that there might be other potential things going on that you've maybe not considered. Um, so we're in a slippery slope, and you mentioned earlier, like there's always there's two sides. You know, you can't have an up without a down supporting it. You can't have a left without a right. You know, the two things have to coexist. This duality exists. And it doesn't matter how hard you can try to kill off the other side, you can't. And maybe this is the acceptance, is that, you know, the world's made up of all sorts of different people, and you can't eradicate the other side. You can't have a coin with one side. You know, like you have to have two sides. You can't. It doesn't.
You wouldn't know what happiness and peace is until you've experienced the agitation and the anxiety and the worry and the fear and everything else.
Absolutely. This is the paradox of life, isn't it? Is that, you know, you can't be attached to anything, because to be attached means you're taking a side. And if you're taking a side, then that's an imbalance. And it's almost like like it's almost like accepting that there are people out there that get agitated by this, and let them carry on being agitated, because that's just part of the journey, isn't it?
That's how they rock. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
if they want to change that, it's up to them.
You know, I've been agitated in the past, and, you know, and annoyed by things and stuff, and taken aside. You know, I'm not saying I'm anything special here, but like, as you get older, and this is probably why people become wiser as they get older, is because they start to accept some of these things, and it's like, it's not even worth getting in the arena to do battle here, because the whole thing's pointless. You know, like it's like trading on crypto or any other asset. At the end of the day, it's a zero-sum game. There are winners matched by equal number of losers. So if you win, you've caused pain for someone because they've lost. Not directly, you've not caused direct pain, and they had the choice to either get in the arena or not get in the arena, but every positive is matched by a negative. It's a zero-sum game. And life's the same. It's a zero-sum game.
Maybe we need to call the video that the zero-sum game.
Yeah, but most people, quite a lot of people wouldn't know what that is, but they know what a mob is, and they know what ruling is.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's probably enough of a rant. It wasn't really a rant. It was just an evaluation of some of the things that have cropped up. And this stuff about peace is down to each of us to come to terms with these things. So it might be that it's not your time to come to peace with these things, and you're so passionate about it that you can't find peace, and you need a resolution. I think peace comes when you accept there is no resolution. It just is it's just
peace comes from acceptance, full stop, and healing comes from acceptance. Accepting the part of you that is rebelling and rejecting yourself.
It's just events. Events are just happening.
Yeah, it's easy to say it's just events, but from my experience, it's very tough to get past that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's taken years.
It's taken a long time, years of self-development.
And work, and looking at every single aspect that pops up, everything that challenges you. You know, like people say life's painful. Yeah, it is, because every event that happens challenges you to do something, because that's another now. And then that now, you have to decide what you're going to do about the thing that's just happened. And, you know, you just do the best you can.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
All right. So
thank you for telling me what happened with the Dalai Lama, because I didn't know.
Well, I don't know what happened with the Dalai Lama. I'm just telling you what I've been told. So, this is against my principles. If someone says to me, "What do you think of the Dalai Lama?" It's like, well, I've never really met him personally, but it seems okay. I had seen him live. You know, there were no kids involved in that scenario. I think you had to be 18 to attend anyway. So.
Right.
Anyway, if you like some of these topics, then just subscribe and like it and all that jazz. And when you've done all that, we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you for watching. Bye.